Well, welcome back here to Hamlet Without Hamlet. I am your host, Ian, and I'm here today with Tim.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. And as usual, we are joined by our in-studio producer and lovely host, Senor David.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Today we are part 2 of discussing the 2025 Oscars Best Film nominations, which once again I still have not seen any of. Almost by design at this point.
Again, par for the course.
But you've now seen 2 more, Tim.
We did.
So
we are up to 7 out of 10.
Right.
The remainders are a complete unknown to me.
Ooh.
I don't know. I'm Still Here and Nickel Boys.
All right.
I'm not sure. It's really hard to find a showing of I'm Still Here and a complete unknown because they've been out. Well, that's not true. Complete Unknown has been out since December. So now it's kind of teetering off. My only hope is that it goes streaming before the Oscars on the 2nd.
In the next week.
Here's hoping. Nickel Boys you can rent online. So maybe we'll do that one if we can't do Complete Unknown. But we did watch Anora and The Brutalist since we last spoke.
So which one do you want to kick it off with?
Probably Anora.
All right.
Which I sat away. We watched it at home. Rented it on Prime. It is an interesting movie that I am surprised is as loved and endeared as it is. And right now, because I know we talked a lot about Amelia Perez last time with its 13 nominations and being the front runner for everything, but being a not great movie. Now that everything has come out and things have shaken out, it is now like down on the list of odds to win essentially everything. So it was the clear front runner to win Best Picture and Best Director and Best Screenplay and now it's not even in the top 5 for Best Picture. And right now, the odds-on favorite is Anora to win Best Picture.
Mixed emotions on that?
Yeah. Like, it's definitely not a bad movie, but I in no way enjoyed the experience. I understood what the director was trying to do. The basic story is, Anora is the name of the main character, and she plays a stripper who one night in the club meets the son of a incredibly wealthy Russian. I don't know if it's drugs or mafia. They don't really go into it that much, but his parents are super rich, and he's like sowing his last wild oat in America before his dad makes him come back and work in the family biz. And he finds an affinity for Anora. They actually start dating. They go on a fun weekend to Vegas, and while there, he proposes because that would allow him supposedly to stay in America because she's an American citizen. And then his parents find out that he actually got married to a stripper, and they fly from Russia to straighten this out. And so it's this interesting sort of 2-path drama about Anora and the 3 guys that are like the henchmen for the Russian family that are tasked with finding her now husband who has gone missing because he wants to abandon all responsibility because he's a man-child. And the super, super rich parents who want to solve this with money and force immediately. And so, again, what the director was trying to show, and I think within limits, he did a pretty good job of showing how the wealthy just do what they want and everyone else's feelings and repercussions, whatever, don't care. And then the reality of when people like this do stuff, the normal people have to try to make something out of it, try to fix it, try to, find a way through without the money and the favoritism and all that.
Yeah, and I think that, as you say, the man-child thing, I think that's a great on-screen showing of what can happen to the wealthy and the rich when they don't raise up the next generation to have responsibilities and to put in work and be challenged. Mm-hmm. So that's I can see that premise as a director trying to put that on screen to help display. I mean, it can happen with wealth or without, but we're called to help them develop for that, so that they're not a man-child.
Yes.
We don't want 25-year-olds that we're calling kids because they act like it. We want them to be young adults that we're watching them grow into being adults.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think the caveat here is his dad and his mom, not necessarily the type that you'd want him to grow into, given who they are and what they do. But I hear your point.
What kind of organizations do they give to? I mean, is there a lot of charity work they do?
Yeah. Putin's Unlimited. I don't know. They don't go into it too much. But, I think the most, the part that hit me the hardest was when she, who wholeheartedly believed that this was legitimate and that he was in love with her and that they were going to figure this out, when he found out that his parents were coming, he was like, "Oh, crap! They're like legit mad." So I'm gonna go, and he just leaves. And until that moment, she was like, "We're gonna figure this out. We'll go to them together. We're married. We have this. I'm now your wife. They have to accept it because that's just how the world works." And then he's like, and her world was just shattered because this was, a fairly down on her luck girl who's doing everything she needs to do to try to survive, and then she gets this lottery ticket that is her saving grace, and then it just crumbles in an instant. And that moment was like, oh, I could imagine that. So, there's moments of really cool dynamics and humanity shown between her and the henchman. At first they're at odds, and then they start to get to like each other because they're just, similar people in different circumstances who are just being told what to do. But me and Elaine, my wife, left the movie both feeling like, I feel like I kind of have to shower. Yeah. Maybe if that's what the director's trying to go for, aces. Way to go, Sean. Sean Baker, who directed it, also nominated, currently frontrunner to win that. It's just like a grittier Pretty Woman, essentially.
Okay.
With a slightly adjusted plot. A lot more swearing. Have you seen Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, Ian, how do we have conversations about this stuff?
I'll put it on the list.
All right, into the void, shall we say?
Wow. That felt personal.
It indeed is not. Anyway, Uncut Gems, one of Adam Sandler's most recent dramatic roles that he was heralded for, and a lot of people were surprised he didn't get a nomination or even a win for Best Actor, is he plays a guy who runs a jewelry pawn shop in New York and feels like he kind of hit it big, and then things just go sideways quick. And it's very real, very gritty. So it feels like Pretty Woman mixed with Uncut Gems. So from like a New Yorker standpoint, the characters feel really real and grounded in that. But it's just not a fun viewing experience for me. And a lot of the people I had heard beforehand were like, I was surprised how funny it was, and I just loved that character, and Mikey, who plays Anora, did such a good job, and I will say, I think she did a good job playing this character, but at no point did I like the character or really care about the story. Like, obviously I cared about her as a character with those moments that hit me, but throughout the moments of the movie, it was like, let's get on with it kind of thing. So I was never invested as I was with a few of the other movies that have been on the list this year. So I will not be surprised if this one now wins based off of the political climate of the Oscars, but I will probably never watch it again. So
that's fair. It is something that I find interesting with the Oscars being the non-film, whatever you call it, aficionado, or somebody who as into it as much as you are just casually watching. I always find it interesting that it, like what you're describing as a premise for the movie, what they're trying to do seems something they'd like, whether the product turns out good to audiences or lands like they want it to. And that's something that I think I've always been challenged with at the Oscars, is it's not that films that win don't have a good foundation, a good story, a good plot. It just doesn't land, generally speaking. And when it goes and wins, it feels just odd to me when you look at full package films that universally are loved.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this one that, yeah, you can see the art and what they're trying to do and accomplish, not taking anything away from that. But whole package, select few really love it, get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I always find that to be quite a challenge to those. And I wonder, as the older demographic of the Oscars ages out and more of our generation start to be in place of that, and the shifting landscape of, alternate medias and stuff, are we going to see it where it starts to be more open to what people want? Or is it going to continue to be, oh, this is what we picked, so that's what it's going to be, like it or not?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be very interested in that myself.
Yeah, I would anticipate it would, just naturally. I think there's a kind of a progression that'll come through that. Well, one of the interesting facets of the Academy as a whole is you get to join the Academy, if you choose, when you win an Oscar. So this is everyone from the producers who won Best Picture to, the guy who made his first ever animated short and just did it really, really well. And then all of a sudden is at the Oscars and winning. He's now on an even playing field. But every year, 4 actors get added, if they're all new, to the Academy, and only 1 director and only 1 cinematographer, because there's 4 categories. So there's always going to be a larger contingent of actors in the Academy by nature of how the setup is. So that's kind of fascinating, because I will say there's been some movies like Renee Zellweger won 4 or 5 years ago for playing Judy Garland. I don't think that movie got nominated outside of that performance. It may have. I'm not certain. But she won because I think there was so many actors that appreciate what she did that it was enough for her to win, even if the film wasn't very well received or
and I think
artistically done outside of that.
Well, I think definitely actors, actresses winning awards in the movie, not a song winning and other parts not. That I've never... Because there can be a shining gem in a otherwise mundane film, whether it's the actor, actress, supporting cast, lighting, directing, some of those things. But the best picture one is always, to me, that's what is the best on-screen, put down, full package deal.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's not a mix of fan favorite, critic favorite, overall package, it just seems to me like that misses the mark. I can't think of a time where I've seen the actor or actress one and been like, because it's some of that's going to be subjective to individuals. Some people are going to love. But the best film to me is just, to me, it seems a lot more clear than what we ever get when they walk up on stage and announce them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I would say they actually did a pretty good job last year with that. I think you and I discussed Oppenheimer and Barbie pretty extensively, and I think we were in full agreement that Oppenheimer was, for lack of a better term, the quintessential Oscar film of the scope and scale you'd expect, the narrative expertise, the acting on par with some of the best you've seen, telling a very real story in a big, grandiose way, meant for the screen. And it just did what it was designed to do impeccably well.
Yeah.
And then you have a movie, which Emma Stone won for Poor Things. Again, I won't watch it again, but her performance was unbelievable. And she won. And Cillian Murphy won for playing Oppenheimer. So I think that they got it right. Other than I probably would have given Nolan Best Director.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But, can't win them all.
Well, that's something I always find interesting too, and I think you talked about it last time with the seeing that how good Wicked was, and the vibe that they're not going to really win much because Wicked 2, they'll get all the kudos and the awards at that time. But you're going to get it later, or you already got one, or we owe you one. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing too. Because I think we talked about it with Oppenheimer and Robert Downey Jr. Mm-hmm. and how that was kind of we missed the mark a couple other times before. Let's get you. Not that his performance was bad, but he's had better performances.
Yes.
Far better performances. So for that to be the one, yes, we're all happy he got one. That's great.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, I think in an interesting symmetry, he missed out on Chaplin because they were making up for Pacino not getting it for Godfather because De Niro got it and Brandon got it for 1 and 2. And now recompense was they made up for it last year with him. It's interesting. And then, there's times the other way where a movie that I feel, some people don't like it, which is fair, but I really like the movie Argo. And it won Best Picture. I think it won Best Cinematography. I think it won Best Screenplay. And Ben Affleck, who starred in it, co-wrote it, and directed it, wasn't even nominated. It's like, how can it be the best picture of the year with some of the best cinematography and the best script that he helped with, and yet it's not the best directed film? That doesn't make any sense. Logically, it shouldn't. And yet, for him to not even be in the top 5 directing performances of the year, but the film win Best Picture is a bridge too far, I'd say. One of the biggest snubs, I think, in Oscar history. It's not very talked about.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing around the Oscars is how much of that seems to go on, and it just is what it is, and there's not a lot of talk about it. There's not a lot of, hey, is this really what it should be? Does that make sense? Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Which I'm sure he felt slighted on it, but if you go speaking out on it, then you're blacklisting yourself from anything in the future.
Yeah.
Or being part of the club.
Yeah, and I think he did win one because he was a producer in it too, which, again, kudos to him. And it won Best Picture, and the producers win for that. So I think he got one. I believe. I'd have to check, but
somebody could check.
It just feels like a massive oversight. There's a discussion that could have been had of like if he got nominated but someone else won, and they saw that as a slightly more artistic. But to not even have it in the top 5 is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
So,
we're not saying he had to win, but at least being in the nominations.
Right. But what an activity I actually did this week, just for the fun of it. A few nights ago, I was rocking my youngest back to sleep because he'd woken up like 1 a.m. And to just keep my mind going so I didn't fall asleep in the rocking chair, which is bad for my neck and back. I was like, how many Best Picture winners can I name from the history of the Best Pictures, which started in 1929? And in my head, it's pretty hard to keep track. But I was like, I think tomorrow I'll print off a sheet and just see how I do. So I did.
And
from like 1964 on, I knew the name of all except 2 of them. And I got the order correct, except for I flipped like 1 or 2, like 3 times or something. So I felt pretty solid about that.
That's impressive.
That's one of those, it's a small bucket list item. It's like, it's not I can't wait to finish this, but as just a completist, I'd like to watch all of the Best Picture winners at some point, and I have like 23 left or something, and most are the 29, 30, 33, 37, 41, 43, 45, 48, 50, like the older ones that are probably not very good.
The century old.
Yeah, they're getting there. So
Around the corner. Maybe that's what you just start watching them as they hit their 100th anniversary.
I could do.
Could film yourself watching them.
I could
100th anniversary.
Make some money online.
Hey.
Subscribe to my Patreon. I don't have one yet, so don't do it yet. But We'll see. Anyway, like I said, I would expect it to win. My wife and I usually fill out a ballot, and we've put in the little circles, 2 different colors, what we would choose to win and what we actually think the Academy will pick. And if either of them are correct, we get a point. See who has the most. Last year, I was 1 away from a perfect bracket.
Where'd you go wrong?
I think it was like makeup, maybe costume design or something like that. I think it was a little bit like, whoa, okay, great. All right.
Does that have a record?
So she has yet to beat me, mostly because she doesn't really like look into it with what the experts think. She's just like, I haven't heard of that one, but okay.
Go with the feelings.
And she'll look over me, 9 awards in and be like, how many you got? 9? I got 2. Well, yeah, that'll happen. But so, Anora, we'll see. That'd be my guess. Brutalist, I think, has a chance to upset it, but nothing else right now, at least. Well, Coda swung out of nowhere and swooped in 3 or 4 years ago. No one expected that one to win, but anything can happen.
Again. Well, you just mentioned The Brutalist. I know that's the other one that you've seen so far.
Woof. What a long movie. It's a movie so long that the director is aware of it and legitimately puts a 15-minute intermission, like a picture on the screen with a timer that says 15 minutes and counts down so you can go to the bathroom, get snacks, do whatever you need to do, make a phone call, check your stock portfolio, whatever you need to do.
Now that is cool.
So,
I mean, yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, it's 3 hours and 40 minutes. So, and I didn't know that going in. Like, I hadn't specifically looked. And we went to like a 7:20 showing. And we got there. And the timer came up. And Elaine's like, is this an actual intermission? And like, oh, there's 15 minutes. And then I looked at my phone. I said it out loud. And the other people, there's like 13 of us in the theater. They're like, oh, okay. Okay. We'll be back. So it's essentially 2 separate movies, really, because one is about an hour and 40 minutes. The other one is about an hour and 26.
Do they have a good, I mean, not to give too much away, but where the intermission comes in, is it a good like break between?
Yeah. The basic story is it's a guy who comes from Hungary and immigrates to the U.S. Right after World War II. But his wife and niece who lives with them are still there and are unable to get out due to some circumstances. I believe, I wasn't totally clear, but I think all of them were in concentration camps. That was the illusion in the movie. And he, before the war, was a highly decorated, celebrated, and accomplished architect in Hungary. Like, he built the library in Budapest and done some other museums and schools and stuff. And through happenstance, when he gets to America, he meets this super wealthy guy, a Carnegie-esque guy, who they had hired him to redo his library, and he designs it in this brutalist architecture style that he's kind of bringing over from Europe. And the guy really likes it. It gets featured in Architecture magazine, and then it just blows up. So he hires this guy to build essentially a community center, but it's much bigger in scale than that. So it's going to have a gym, it's going to have a theater, it's going to have a chapel, it's going to have a main congregation room, like meeting room and all that, and he wants him to design it. And that's the majority of the movie from there on, is him trying to get this building built. In the midst of it, he's trying to get his wife and niece to America, and there's inner workings between him and the family of the rich guy and all the dynamics. So the story in itself is how difficult it is for immigrants to succeed in America, especially back then. And that is told really well, the hardships and how they feel unwanted at times and looked down upon, especially because they're Jews. At that period was obviously very clear with the anti-Semitism that ran rampant. So that part is played really well, and Adrian Brody does a really good job. I didn't love the performance, but he was, again, the scope of the performance was massive. He's the current front runner to win Best Actor for the second time. But man, we walked out of that and we're like, boy, was that dumb. So, like case in point, I don't know if you've seen the clip from Family Guy when Peter's with his family and I think they're locked in a vault or something and it's flooding with water. And he's like, since we're about to die, I think I should share something with you.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't care for The Godfather. Like, what? Yeah. What didn't you like about it? It's one of the greatest. It insists upon itself. That's how I felt about this movie. It's like, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. Enjoy me is kind of how it felt. And maybe that was part of the point, because brutalist architecture is boom.
Yeah.
I'm a cement wall and I'm a building and take that. I don't need no curves. I don't need no edges. You're going to love me as I am, or I don't give a crap. It's kind of the feel of brutalism.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair to say.
Windows, get out of here. Ain't nobody need to see any things. So there's a feel of that in the movie. And again, if that's what he was going for, fantastic. But it didn't make for a fun viewing experience. So I don't know. I hesitate a little bit to compare it to Schindler's List and experience in terms of enjoyment, because that's obviously much, much heavier of a subject matter. But it's sort of like if characters from that movie had then come to America and we're watching part 2 of that. But a lot of the carries over. That.
Yeah.
So it was, I think part of my lack of enjoyment is that he's not based off a real person. So we spent almost 4 hours watching the story of this amazing architect trying to build this building, and none of it's true. You can't, there's no buildings that he actually made in Hungary. There's no building that we watched get made that's true that you can go look it up. So it feels, I know there's stories like this, but it felt like if you were going to put someone in a story like this, there's hundreds of thousands of real immigrants that you could have lifted up a little and honored in this type of way. But I had a hard time connecting to it.
I think that's fair. Well, I think they definitely, we've all seen where they take somebody of a similar path in life. Maybe they were a brutalist architect, but not some world renowned, and didn't do that. They could take their story and then obviously Hollywood it, shall we say, and just make it more grand and more to bring people to the screen, but still somebody that you can attach to. I think there's definitely value to those things to bring attention to, and I can appreciate the lack of connection to the real world of, well, that's cool in theory.
Mm-hmm. So it's not for me. Again, I will not watch it again. I'd rather watch, I don't know, Shape of Water a couple times in a row than watch that movie again. So, and that movie is about interspecies poontang. So, and that won Best Picture. So, it is what it is. you know.
Sometimes it is. I think as you hit on that too, that's one of those things with the best film awards is the enjoyment level or lack thereof of winners so frequently. It's not that the film per se is a bad film itself, but isn't part of what people are doing supposed to be enjoyment. It doesn't mean that you necessarily walk out of the theater always like feeling great or awesome or like you're leaving Fast and Furious and you can jump a car 1,000 feet or something like that, but you don't feel,
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like case in point. There's one scene where they're trying to, or they are shipping materials and people from wherever they have it to the construction site of this building, and so it's loaded on a train. And we start pretty close to the train, and then it's a slow drone shot up. And it has to be like a minute and a half of just the train slowly moving up the track, and we're slowly panning up. Clouds start to come in, and then an explosion happens. But we're too far away to really, other than seeing the fireball, know what happened or anything like that. And it's those types of things where, like, that could have been 25 seconds. I was like, what are we doing? What was the point of that? Again, if it's brutalism, aces to you, but that doesn't make it a fun viewing experience. So, we'll see.
Sounds like it's got a chance to win some awards based on your feelings.
It was pretty brutal.
Pun intended.
Yeah, well, once I found out that The Brutalist was about an architect who does brutalism, which I actually find a little bit fascinating because I think there's some really cool examples of brutalist architecture done well and some horrifically bad-looking brutalist architecture. I thought, oh, cool, this will be an actually fascinating look at the advent of brutalism in America and where that came from and why it became popular. Only a little, and not true. So maybe I had a little lack of fulfillment in that respect. But more to come. I can't wait to see A Complete Unknown.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that I'm definitely excited about.
So that's the for sure one, whether we have to find it somewhere. I know I sent you both a link to the Best Picture Showcase at the local theater here, but we'll see. There you go.
So, Ian, did I hear a commitment that you're going to watch that one? Is that what you just said?
Which one?
The one you just said.
Complete Unknown.
That is one I do plan to watch. It will be after the Oscars. I'm just
After the Oscars, okay.
Anybody got time?
Well, at this point, we're only roughly a week out from it. It seems that I've done well to not see any of them.
Gotta keep that streak going.
It would almost seem shameful at this point to see any before and just wait till.
I'm not gonna watch the Oscars anyway.
Wow, I feel called out.
I know. I'll watch it for you.
I know you will. I'll just look for the live updates.
Yeah, no, I actually just rewatched the full clip of La La Land getting announced as Best Picture, and then the whole kerfuffle after when they realized that wasn't the correct envelope. And
Oh yes.
oh, crushing.
That's a rough.
That is cringe cinema at its worst. You feel so bad for Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway up there, and he's just like, and the Oscar goes to. And in his mind, he's like, that's not right. I can't say that. What do I do? And he shows it to Faye, and she just goes, La La Land! Like, huh. Anyway, if you don't remember, there was a duplicate of the Best Actress card. So when he pulled it out, it said La La Land, Emma Stone, Best Actress, way at the bottom in tiny writing. And he's supposed to announce the Best Picture. So he opens it up, and it says La La Land, but it says Emma Stone, and doesn't say Best Picture. So instead of saying, I think I got the wrong envelope, which would have been the simplest thing to do, he shows it to Faye, and she just reads it! And then the rest happened.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Man, was that. Rarely in live television have I ever been mouth agog. And that one was just like, what? What's going on?
Dare we say it was better drama than some of the movies selected?
I don't know. Maybe. I wanted La La Land to win so bad, and I was so excited that it did. And Moonlight was my bottom of all 10 of those movies by a long shot. And for that one to get usurped by my pick was like...
Now, did you have that as the pick to win because...
No, I don't think so. I'd have to look back at it. But, man, I just love La La Land. And Hollywood loves movies about movies, and that is the quintessential movie about movies. I don't know if quintessential is the right word, but it's all-encompassingly what it's like to be an actor pursuing being in movies in Hollywood. And just the hint of a dream and going forward in it, and it resonated with me a lot, and I wanted it to win. My kids know the opening song. We've seen the clip. I haven't seen the whole movie, but just the opening song. Anyway, I'm over it.
Doesn't sound like it.
We'll put that to a vote in the comments. Is Tim over it, folks?
I am. Okay. Let's move on.
Just drop it. I'm fine.
Well, we're still here.
Yeah. Anyway,
still
no.
here.
So like I said, right now, Anora is the front runner for Best Picture and Director, and I believe Screenplay. Adrian Brody is the front runner for Best Actor. Right now, which would be really cool to see, Demi Moore is the front runner for the movie we discussed last time, The Substance.
Yep.
For Best Actress. Zoe is still, with Amelia Perez, the front runner for Supporting Actress. And then Kieran Culkin from A Real Pain is the odds-on favorite for Supporting Actor. But I think this is going to be one of those times where Amelia Perez, through its own faults and the faults of its cast and director, nominated for 13 and will probably only win one, which is, I think, a saving grace that the Oscar and the Academy needed, even if they didn't know it.
The drama around it almost saved it from...
So they probably would have awarded it at least 3 or 5 or 6 awards out of
11.
nowhere. And it would be forever cemented as a Best Picture winner.
Yeah.
And then this stuff would have come out in a couple months. And it would have been like this, asterisk Black Paul, like a step beyond like Will Smith with King Richard and The Slap and all of that.
Slap what? I don't know what you... Slap heard around the world.
The Slap heard round the world. My goodness. And they just let him sit there, and then they gave him an Oscar. It was so weird.
And to me,
Just walk up and assault someone on live TV, and then nothing happens, and everyone's like, what do we do? We already voted for him.
Yeah, I'm so challenged and conflicted by that because you look at society today and the accountability that's in this world. And on one of the biggest stages, somebody goes out and assaults somebody, and we just go, here you go. Here's your award, and we're going to praise you still. And that to me is not the messaging I want my kids to see or that I think the world needs. Do I think being stripped away of it? I don't know. I'm glad I'm not in a position that has to make that. But when people do something so egregious publicly and on live TV at that, emotional or not, I mean, accountability should be there. And if we're telling people that there's not accountability, then what stops people from just doing whatever they want?
Yeah. That was just... The dynamic was so weird because Will Smith is so loved, and he had worked his whole career to be Will Smith, one of the most loved movie stars on the planet.
Yeah.
And he finally, after his third try, won the Academy Award. And for it to happen with this hanging over it was so weird and just... Wow.
Yeah.
It's heavy. Obviously, there's many, many more stories and background and internal demons going on there that led to that. But
Well, that's a good point too, is when we see something like that out of people, rarely is it the one incident that leads to a situation like that. Like working with people every day in my professional life, there's people that I've had lash out or treat me in a very unkind ways. And I've come to a point of understanding that rarely is it anything that I did or the situation that we're in there that led to them reacting and treating me in such a way. So what all is underlying or what's going on there, none of us ever truly know. But I think it doesn't excuse egregious acts.
right.
I also think it can help, if you're going to heal forward from that, for some of that stuff to be maybe discussed or addressed to help. Not to make excuses necessarily, but I think to give a little more insight. Because clearly there's more going on there. Never really heard anything else other than, here's your award and go be quiet and don't make a ruckus.
Mm-hmm. Well, they banned him from the Oscars, and he did make a formal apology video to Chris Rock, but I haven't really heard much about it since then.
Nope.
If they're on speaking terms or where he and Jada are at relationally, and it just feels like he's an incredibly charismatic, powerful dude who has just been somewhat emasculated in the current situation he's in and doesn't have a way out. Is what it feels like.
I'd second that.
And the shame of it for me is that year, and Andrew Garfield was also nominated for Best Actor for a movie called Tick, Tick, Boom, which I just discussed with him earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been amazing for him to win for. And to have him not win, lose to Will, and then that happened was like, oh no! It's made worse!
A little salt in the wound for you.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Oscars, man. There's always something.
There
It's
is.
one of the fun things to tune in for is you never know what you're going to get between streakers and people denying the Oscars and wrong names being read and people not showing up.
Still people being people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did I tell you that they're planning to not sing the songs live this year? Like they usually do. That's usually a big chunk of time, which, again, I've appreciated because it's the songs and not everybody's heard them. But also, the people that win these awards get, 30 seconds to a minute to do their speech. But one nominee gets 3 to 5 minutes to perform an entire song on the broadcast. Seems disproportionate.
Yeah.
But they're not even doing it this year. And I think it's because a couple of them are from Amelia Perez, and they're not great songs, and they're really, really hard to perform live because there's not much musicality to them from my perspective. But
That could be. I wonder, too, if it's just the attention span of people has begun to shorten, that adding that much.
I mean, maybe, but last year we did 2 from Barbie, which were amazing. What Was I Made For, which won. And then I'm Just Ken, which blew the roof off the place. I'm just Ken. Anywhere else I'd be a 10. Anyway.
One of Tim's favorites, if nobody could tell.
That's usually one of my favorite parts, especially because I don't know some of the songs. Like 8-9 years ago now, there was a movie that came out of India called RRR. Didn't win anything else except Best Song. And it's this really energetic, over-the-top, non-stop dance number. And in the movie, it's very frenetic and high-paced. And it's you do this move until one person is left standing and everyone else is just, physically out. That's the whole scene. And there's the 2 last guys, the 2 leads in the movie are like doing this move back and forth. And then there's this one girl that likes one of the guys and the other friend sees this and he like sacrifices so that his friend could win and he could look good in the eyes of the girl. My kids love dancing to that clip on YouTube, but I didn't know that song existed until they performed it. And they did the whole, like, the suspender dance and the back and forth and the leg kick, and there was like 60 people on stage doing this, and it was like, what is happening? And that is entertainment that you just wouldn't get, and we won't get this year. So I'm torn. Because sometimes the songs aren't good enough to validate it, and other times you don't know what you'll miss.
We'll find out, won't we?
Nachu Nachu from RRR. So good. Your boys would love it. I think we've probably played it once when they went over, but
We'll check it out.
yeah. They have the suspenders on, and at one point they're doing like a stretch out, stretch in, stretch right, stretch left, and up and back, and like they do dances with the suspenders. So Boston, my son, had watched this a couple times, and it came on, and he's like, "Dad, pause it!" And he ran upstairs, and he got my suspenders, flipped him on his pants. He came back, and he was like, "Okay, go!" Ow! He hadn't learned that lesson yet, but now he has.
Hey. A lesson
Right on the
learned.
chest. There it is.
Oh,
So there you go.
I will check. That is something I will check out because music is definitely. That's one thing I do like.
But I think that's what I got for you today. So we put a pin in that until our next meeting when the Oscars will be awarded.
Yeah, we can recap.
We sure can.
Or recap all the picks, the drama,
But-
the wrong names.
Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Sorry, LeVar.
Thanks, folks. Take care.